Are you scared of flying? Well, if you weren't before, you will be after watching this. From planes that vanished without a trace to ones that appeared to just drop out of the sky, in this video we are counting down the top 8 most mysterious plane crashes of all time. Number 8. Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. While en route from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur on the 17th of July 2014, Flight MH17 was flying over conflict-ridden Ukraine when it was suddenly shot down. Every single one of the 238 people on board was killed. It's emerged that the Malaysian Airlines plane had been hit by a Russian-made Buk missile, most likely fired by pro-Russian fighters. The disaster exacerbated tensions between Russia and Ukraine, which were already nearing breaking point following the annexation of Crimea by the Russian Federation earlier in the year. Ukrainian intelligence claimed that Russia had supplied the missile to insurgents who had mistakenly shot down the aircraft, not realizing that it was a civilian passenger jet. However, Russia denies all involvement in the MH17 crash, saying that Ukraine was responsible for it, seeing as the incident happened in Ukrainian airspace. No one has ever been charged or tried for the incident, and lengthy investigations have proved inconclusive regarding who was actually to blame. Number 7. Helios Airways Flight 522. On the 14th of August 2005, Helios Airways Flight 522 departed from Larnaca, Cyprus, bound for Athens. The flight was a commercial passenger flight with 115 passengers and 6 crew members on board. Shortly after takeoff, it became clear to the ground crew that something wasn't quite right. The plane's crew was ignoring all radio transmissions despite at least 19 attempts to contact the pilot. 2 small fighter planes were therefore scrambled to intercept Flight 522 and find out what was going on. When they flew alongside the passenger jet, the sight that greeted them was something straight out of a ghoulish nightmare. Both the captain and co-pilot were lying motionless and oxygen masks dangled above the lifeless bodies of the unconscious passengers. With no way for the fighter pilots to gain control of the plane, Flight 522's fuel eventually ran out and the plane plummeted into a Greek hillside, killing everyone on board. Subsequent investigations indicated that the cabin had not been pressurized, which led to a deadly lack of oxygen. However, it's still a complete mystery as to how this fatal error could have been made. Was it a deliberate act of sabotage or just a terrible mistake? Number 6. EgyptAir Flight 990. EgyptAir Flight 990 took off from New York for Cairo on the 31st of October 1999, but it never reached its destination. Less than half an hour after takeoff, it had crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. The cause of this terrible tragedy has been widely debated, but authorities haven't been able to agree on what caused the disaster. There are 2 potential explanations for the crash. Either it was caused by mechanical fault, or it was the result of deliberate action by the pilot. Egyptian Civil Aviation Authority believes that there was a possible failure of one of the right elevator's power control units, which would have intensely affected the crew's ability to control the plane. But investigations by the American National Transportation Safety Board pointed to evidence that co-pilot Gamil Al-Petouti was suicidal and had intentionally crashed the plane. He reportedly kept repeating, "I rely on God," as the plane went into a dive, killing all 217 people on board. Number 5. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739. This next tragic tale takes us back to the 1960s when Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 was transporting 93 US and 3 South Vietnamese soldiers from Guam to the Philippines. This flight, which took place on March 16, 1962, was to become one of the most perplexing mysteries in aviation history. As it was flying over the western Pacific Ocean, the military plane just disappeared, and no one since has been able to figure out what happened to it. The horrific disappearance prompted a colossal search effort. At least 520,000 square kilometers of the Pacific was searched, involving personnel from 4 branches of the US military. No trace of debris or wreckage was ever found. The crew of a civilian tanker came forward shortly after the disappearance, claiming that they had witnessed in-flight explosion high in the air above them. Number 4. Egypt Air Flight 804. No one knows what happened to Egypt Air Flight 804, a passenger flight from Paris to Cairo which crashed into the Mediterranean Sea on the 19th of May 2016. The plane had 66 people on board, and no survivors were found among the wreckage. Air traffic control didn't receive a mayday call prior to the crash, and evidence retrieved from the plane's flight recorders proved inconclusive. One major line of thought is that the plane was taken out by a terrorist plot, as was suggested by the fact that Egyptian officials found traces of explosives on the bodies. Alternatively, investigators have been considering the possibility that an accidental fire broke out after the lithium batteries on the pilot's mobile phone overheated. This is based on the fact that the pilot often kept his mobile phone by the plane's controls, and both of these theories have evidence to back them up, as some of the discovered sections of the aircraft showed signs of soot damage. Number 3. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 has become one of the most famous airline mysteries of all time. The plane had taken off from Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. on the 8th of March 2014, and it was bound for Beijing. But at 1:19 a.m., traffic controllers received what was to be the last radio message from the plane as it passed from Malaysian airspace into Vietnamese airspace, saying simply, "All right, good night." Shortly after this message, the ground crew completely lost contact with MH370 and were never able to regain it. The search for the missing plane was a gigantic endeavor. It cost an estimated $200 million, covered almost 2% of the world's surface, and involved both ships and aircraft from 9 different countries. Only one piece of debris from the plane was ever found, a small part of the aircraft's wing. The item had washed up on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean in July 2015. On the 17th of January 2017, the search was officially called off. Number 2. Pan Am Flight 7. On the 8th of November 1957, luxurious Pan Am Flight 7 set off from San Francisco, carrying 44 passengers for an around-the-world flight. It was due to stop off in Hawaii, but shortly after takeoff, the plane lost contact with the land crew and disappeared. It was not found until 5 days later, when rescue teams discovered its wreckage in the Pacific Ocean. The autopsies of the recovered bodies showed high levels of carbon monoxide, suggesting the poisoning had played a role in the crash. Investigations into what happened looked at 2 passengers with possible motives to bring the plane down. 46-year-old Eugene Crothwaite had allegedly been showing relatives experiments using blasting powder and had also suspiciously cut his stepdaughter from his will only 1 hour before the flight. Did he know his death was imminent? The other suspect was ex-Navy demolitions expert William Payne, who was in thousands of dollars of debt. He took out an insurance policy on himself only days before his death, meaning that his wife would receive at least $125,000 in payouts. Number 1. Malaysia Airlines Flight 653. In recent years, Malaysia Airlines has been haunted with horrific airline disasters like the MH17 crash that we mentioned earlier. But the airline's first major incident occurred almost 40 years ago on the 4th of December 1977. Malaysia Airlines Flight 653 from Penang to Kuala Lumpur was carrying 93 passengers and 7 members of the crew. The plane crashed in Tanjung Kupang, a small Malaysian district, killing all of those on board. It is suspected that the plane had been hijacked as it had been diverted off routes. However, investigations couldn't prove this conclusively. No identifiable bodies were recovered, meaning that it is pretty impossible to work out who the supposed hijackers were. What's more, all of the recovered remains were extensively searched and X-rayed, and investigators couldn't find any evidence of a projectile or weapon that could have been used to carry out a hijacking. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more mysterious topics just like this. See you in the next video, guys!